For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin today in Brazil, where just over a week before presidential elections, incumbent candidate Dilma Rousseff and challenger Aécio Neves go head-to-head for their second televised debate. Pro-market candidate Aécio Neves has received criticism for his vague proposals. He didn't offer any concrete plans at the debate. He also faced Rousseff's criticism for a lack of investment in health and education during his time as governor of Minas Gerais. Neves has received a boost in funding for his campaign. A recently released report shows that his funds have nearly doubled in September thanks to large donations from banks and ethanol corporations.
Será a primeira presidente da República a deixar o governo com uma inflação maior do que aquela que...
Uruguay is also preparing for presidential elections. Current President José Mujica remains confident that his leftist Broad Front political party will triumph, not only with the presidency, but also in the parliamentary elections. Uruguayans will also take to the polls on October 26th. Polls show the front-runners to be Tabaré Vázquez from the Broad Front Party and Localle Pau from the Conservative National Party. The survey suggests the election will enter a second round. Excitement continues in Venezuela following the country's historic appointment to the United Nations Security Council. During a televised speech with his cabinet yesterday, President Nicolás Maduro said that Venezuela would use its position to represent the voice of peace. He says Venezuela will also represent the voice of the multi-centric world and a united Latin American voice. Maduro calls the vote a victory for the legacy of his predecessor, Hugo Chávez.
It is a backing that really breaks voting records and breaks the record in terms of global support. We should feel happiness and joy in our hearts that Venezuela is a country that is loved, a country that is admired throughout the world. We have said it 1,000 times. Our commander, Hugo Chávez, repositioned Venezuela as a country of dignity. This is a victory of Hugo Chávez Frías, from his legacy, from his memory.
Also in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro has revealed that those behind the murder of Congressman Robert Serra earlier this month are in fact Colombian paramilitaries. As our correspondent in Colombia, Charles Parkinson, finds out, it comes as the latest case of paramilitaries attempting to destabilize Venezuela's Bolivarian revolution.
For Carlos Lozano, director of Newsweekly Voz and a member of organisation Colombians for Peace, the news that the paramilitaries who murdered Venezuelan Deputy Robert Serra were connected to Colombia came as little surprise.
No nos sorprende, porque el paramilitarismo...
It didn't surprise us because paramilitarism has always played a negative destabilizing role in the Bolivarian process since the time of Commander Chavez. You must remember that several years ago, on a farm near Caracas, various Colombian paramilitaries were detained on a farm, a paramilitary group.
A Caracas fueron detenidos varios paramilitares colombianos, un grupo de paramilitares.
The revelations emerged during a televised public address by Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, in which he named 8 people linked to the assassination, including Serra's own head of security. This attempt to destabilize the country also appears linked to the advances made in Colombia's peace process.
An unstable Venezuela means an unstable peace process in Colombia. And obviously, an unstable peace process in Colombia means the security conditions are going to worsen a lot, worse than they are now, along the border, because the conflict will intensify once again.
While 2 of the men wanted in relation to Serra's killing have been caught, 6 remain at large, and the name of the Colombian mastermind has yet to be revealed. This is just the latest example of Colombian paramilitarism extending its tentacles into neighbouring Venezuela, and with Nicolás Maduro warning that other members of his government continue to be targets, there could yet be more violence to come. Charles Parkinson, Telesur, in Bogotá, Colombia.
And thanks to Charles. In other Latin American news, we turn to Mexico and our Mexican correspondent Clayton Kahn on the situation of the 43 students missing in the state of Guerrero.
In a special session, the Guerrero State Congress approved to revoke the license and mayoral powers from Jesus Luis Abarca, the fugitive mayor from the town of Iguala, accused of strong ties to organized crime and for being responsible for the forced disappearance of 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Teachers Training College and the death of 6 on the night of September 26. This comes after a day of more finger-pointing between politicians and authorities over who will take the political blame for the crimes involving police and potentially the military. The Guerrero State Governor Angel Aguirre called for the resignation of his health minister, stating that he had strong ties to the Iguala mayor. Yet there's a growing cry among the population for the ouster of the governor himself, accused of turning a blind eye to ties of organized crime with politicians in his state. Today, a mega march is expected in the beach town of Acapulco, as family and classmates of the disappeared now are calling to occupy government buildings and say that they will do so until the missing are returned alive.
And we go now to French Guiana, where Argentina has successfully launched its first telecommunications satellite. The satellite blasted into outer space via an Ariane 5 rocket. It will become operative within a few weeks. Argentinian officials have praised the initiative, citing the increased communication capabilities that isolated regions of South America will receive as a result of the satellite. In other Latin American news, our correspondent David Doherty in Bolivia sits down with author Benjamin Dongol. The writer is an expert on Bolivia and its politics. David wanted to know Dongol's thoughts on what factors led to President Evo Morales' landslide victory during this past Sunday's presidential elections.
Bolivia's Evo Morales has been elected president for the third time, this time with roughly 60% of the vote. We spoke with Benjamin Dongol, author of Dancing with Dynamite and The Price of Fire, who has written extensively on Bolivian history and politics to understand some of the factors that contributed to Morales' popularity in the polls.
The poor indigenous majority of the country identify with him as an indigenous man, and he also came from a lot of the social movements that helped win a lot of the victories that he's helped institutionalize since he's come to power. Evo Morales and his administration has also been successful in promoting economic policies that have lifted people out of poverty, empowered marginalized sectors of the country, and through the nationalization of various industries and businesses, the government has generated an enormous amount of funds that have gone toward projects, programs that have helped out school children, mothers, the elderly, that have been extremely popular.
Looking toward President Morales' upcoming term, one can expect to see a continuation of many of the same policies that got him elected.
One of the reasons why the MAS has been so popular is because they've broken with a neoliberal past, and they've created a kind of socialistic or socialist-based economy and society that has alleviated poverty and empowered people. So they'll probably continue with a lot of these policies that have been so popular.
Benjamin Dongol also anticipates some tensions to play out over the next term, centered on some of the contradictions that have arisen between the Bolivian government's discourse of protecting the environment and indigenous land rights and the country's primarily extractivist-based economy. Reporting from La Paz, David Doherty, Telesur.
The Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our Americas will soon meet to discuss Ebola. The trade bloc, spearheaded by Venezuela and Cuba, will meet October 20th to determine how participating countries can coordinate regional cooperation. They hope to prevent the outbreak from spreading into Latin American and Caribbean countries. Cuba has already agreed to send more than 400 health professionals to West Africa this month to assist in containing the outbreak. In Italy, talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian head of state Petro Poroshenko were full of misunderstandings and disagreements. That's according to the Kremlin. The comments come following a meeting of the two leaders on the sidelines of the EU-Asia summit in Milan. The meeting was to discuss natural gas supply from Russia and the ceasefire in eastern Ukraine. The statements from Russian officials have undercut more upbeat messages from other international leaders. Various government representatives emerged an hour after the encounter, saying that they had made some progress. And to Syria, where Islamic State forces are withdrawing from several neighborhoods in the city of Kobani. A British-based human rights group has released a report revealing that at least 660 people were killed in the last month of fighting in the town. More than half of those killed were Islamic State group fighters. The report goes on to say that the number of dead could actually be as high as 1,200 Kurdish and Islamic State fighters. U.S. officials say that despite the progress, the town could still fall to the extremist group. And we go to Yemen, where the Houthi movement, which seized the country's capital last month, has now also taken over the country's second largest seaport. They have also captured the Hodeidah city airport. The Houthis are a Shiite militant group from northern Yemen and have taken informal control over the government. It comes as suspected al-Qaeda fighters have seized a security base south of the capital, killing 3 policemen before escaping into nearby mountains. And in Palestine, for the second week in a row, Israeli security forces have refused to allow Muslim Palestinian men under the age of 50 to worship at the Al-AQSA Mosque in East Jerusalem. The refusal has led to clashes at the mosque, which have resulted in Israeli police arresting dozens of Palestinians. The Palestinians have been protesting the fact that hundreds of right-wing Jews are being escorted to Al-AQSA, with the Israeli police to tour the compound. And finally, we head to China, where residents are commemorating the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between Beijing and Paris. The celebrations have featured a performance from Long Ma, a 12-meter-high robot horse dragon, which weighs 45 tons. During the performance, the horse dragon fights a 20-meter-long yellow spider called the Princess. This act is based on the Chinese creation myth of the goddess Nuwa, who, according to the tale, made human beings out of yellow mud and saved humanity from the apocalypse. Impressive. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle.